It's the All Birdies, No Bogeys podcast, your weekly disc golf analysis podcast right here on JomezPro. I'm your host, Brian Earhart. First tournament recap of the year. I'm joined here by three special boys. I got Nate Perkins, my co-host. He had a first. He did his first play-by-play gig on the Disc Golf Network. Gannon Buhr, he had a first. He shot 13 down, final round to take second place at the Supreme Flight Open. Chandler Kramer, he had a first. First lead card final round at the Supreme Flight Open and officially broke Nate Sexton's brain. We're going to break all that down in this episode. What a crazy week to kick off the Disc Golf Pro Tour season. Boys, thank you so much for joining me. Nate, I'm going to kick it to you. You have done color commentary pretty much for everything. On courses, color commentary. When me and you work together, I usually take the host. I let you do color. Any other place you do, that's what you do. You're filling in the why of the situation. You drove the boat this time. What was the change like? You did both divisions.
Yeah, I feel first, it's just a huge honor to be given the opportunity to do something like this. You know how much I love this game, how much I love this sport. I really feel that it lives on live disc golf. Like live disc golf is where it's at. That's where the story is unfolding. I know most of our viewers are still watching on Jomez, but I see that kind of transitioning over to live in the next few years. So just honored to have the opportunity. And the biggest difference between the two, for sure, on course, you're just walking through the woods. You're hanging out with the players. You're walking, but you're behind a tee pad. You're watching shots, and then every now and then you're trying to add a little context to it. And play by play, it's the volume of words that you have to kind of populate. The timing of the word choice, right? You need to be. There's an acute level of focus required to not drop a word or say something incorrect when you are pulling a statistic or draw from the wrong memory bank of the wrong round when you're referring to someone's shot. There's so many points that you just need to stay focused for. And to be honest, this was one of the longest weekends of my life. Day two, I'm on the West Coast, tournament's on the East Coast, right? And everyone knows they had to come back and play at, 7:36 a.m. Well, if you do some simple math, that's 4:36 a.m. on the West Coast. And so my call time is like 3:45 a.m. and the booth is 45 minutes away from my house. So I'm setting my alarm before 3 a.m., waking up and driving, and I'm like 300 milligrams of caffeine to just like get back up to like ground zero so that I can try and like carry the broadcast. And not as a complaint, right? That's just the observation. And it feels really special to contribute so much to a storyline, right? And I feel proud of a lot of my work. I'm going to give myself a B- on the entire weekend for, just some mispronunciation and just some dropping of some words and some moments. But for the most part, I felt proud of some of the context that I was able to add, talking about the discs that I know that Gannon's throwing in key moments and some spots around the course that I know really well. So proud of my work, but really just stoked to witness it unfold outside of the rain round, because I don't think anyone likes it. I don't think the players like it. I don't like to see players have to try and play in conditions that intense. And so for me, day one was just tough to watch everyone have to endure that, watch the defending champion like not be able to hold on to the disc. That was pretty sad. Yeah, and so I'm going to actually redirect this over to, let's go Gannon Buhr first, because I just want to hear, how deflating it is for you. You're preparing for the first tournament of the season, and to see the radar and to know that you're about to have to, the test is different. It's not about how well you can play golf, but it's about how well you can grip the tee pad and how well you can grip the disc. What is that like, Gannon?
Yeah, it was definitely interesting. In a way, it was kind of nice because you kind of feel like you have that mid-season form already because we typically start your year with having to come back in the morning. So it kind of, and even like a rain round, because it's so miserable, you're kind of just like living in the moment instead of thinking about, oh, it's the first tournament of the year. I need to make sure this is going right. My game plan's good. My whatever. It kind of takes from that. So, but it was definitely frustrating. I mean, we actually didn't think it was going to even rain at all during the day. We thought it was going to happen at night, and we might stop on like hole 12 or something. But like you guys saw, it was pretty bad the entire day. And then obviously there was some controversy with how late they made us stay out there, and we can go into that later. But yeah, it was definitely just a really interesting way to start the year.
Well, let's touch on that. Do you feel like they should have called it? How much sooner do you feel they should have called it?
I think they pushed it between 20 and 30 minutes too long. Maybe closer to 20. But I got to 16, and the only disc that really works for me on that tee shot is dark purple. And that was the hole that I got called on, and we actually teed off, and I actually threw, I think, my second shot on that hole. And like, it felt unfair. It felt like there was a 0% chance I'd have a birdie, and I'm most likely going to bogey purely because I can't see anything. And I was like, how would this work if I had a lost disc? Because my disc is dark purple, I shouldn't get penalized because of the color of disc I have to throw, And it's like, what did it really serve to have us stay out there until almost dark? Why did we really need to be out there? What was the point? It was foggy, it was rainy, it was cloudy. It's not like you were just normally losing daylight like we have had in the past where it's sunny, but then you just run out of daylight. Like, it was a ton of different things. And, not all the cards were going to get through the course anyway. So what's the point of even staying, So I don't know. It was definitely a bit frustrating. I know a lot of players were mad about it. But, we all had to go through it. It is what it is. And I'm just glad it didn't really affect the tournament too much.
I want to pass this to Chandler. Same question to you. Chaotic first day. What was that first day like for you? We didn't see you until later on in the tournament.
Yeah, Gannon just said all of us had to go through it. That's not quite true because I got my round done before they did, so I didn't have to come back at 7:30 in the morning. But no, I remember when the rain hit. The forecast, I think at the time, had said it was going to be going around 3 or something like that. So I remember me teeing off early as I was like, I don't need to bring an umbrella. It's not going to rain. And we get to 14. And it has already started to kind of rain a little bit here and there. And I actually threw a really good tee shot on 14, despite what I did today. And I was like center cut of the fairway. And by the time we got to where I was about to throw, it was just coming down ridiculously hard. I mean, I couldn't even get anything there. It didn't matter what was going on. Everything was just soaking wet. And I threw one of my javelins, which is like a really high speed, 13-speed driver. I just remember trying to full flex it, and I went a whole 250 feet, and I like sprinted underneath the canopy that's over by hole 12. And I was like, we were under there, and we're like, how long is it going to be? And then like off of the distance, we thought we heard a horn, and then the guy like finally blew the horn. But man, I thought they were supposed to call that probably another 5-10 minutes earlier than what they actually did, because it was unbearable.
Yeah, I think the issue was well, maybe not an issue. The only thing I heard was it was one single strike and it was within 3 miles. So obviously that's alarming, but apparently every other lightning strike was 100 miles away. So I don't think there was any like rushing or not rushing to make the call. It was just a very interesting situation where once that one strike hit, they blew the horn and then nothing else happened. But I wanted to ask you, Chandler, actually, I want to pivot and kind of talk to you more about this sidearm, which we're going to talk about all day, with you. But I was an all sidearm player, except for distance backhands when I started touring in 2018. My style changed a little bit over time, but I remember when it got rainy, I had the worst time throwing sidearm. I almost gave up throwing sidearm when it got rainy because I had one point of contact throwing kind of this two finger. What is that like for you? What is the grip situation like when it gets too moist or too wet?
So the grip situation, realistically, is I just need to make sure that my hand is dry because I also tape my fingers. And if the tape gets wet, I am screwed. It's the nicest way I can say it. But that in that specific case on Friday, whenever it was coming down, it was so much rain at one point in time that it didn't matter what I had. Like everything was soaking wet. But from a perspective of throwing forehands, it's really just I got to keep my hand dry at all costs. That's really all it comes down to. Especially like I said, since I tape my fingers, that is the if that gets wet, I really am going to struggle. And it's not that I can't throw without tape. It's just that in the past, where I specifically tape, I get blisters from throwing. So I'm trying to prevent doing that again.
Switching back to Gannon. Gannon, I want you to kind of take us through your week in general. I mean, 13 down final round that's insane at this course. I mean, I'm walking through some of these tee shots. I'm looking at holes 5. I'm looking at holes 9. These are true NBA three-point line holes where AMs are walking up and being like, yeah, I have no business ever dreaming of birdieing or even maybe parring some of these holes. Just talk to us about getting all the way to second place from where you started in the tournament.
Yeah, it was definitely a interesting week for me. Came into it typical, like how I feel coming after the off season. Usually my backhand is terrible, and it was really bad. And so I actually did a bit of a form change for the last 2 rounds, just mentally. And finally, like obviously today, I was able to kind of get back into form. And so for me, the tournament was definitely frustrating. It's a course that I like on paper, but playing in tournaments not my favorite. A lot of the changes I didn't really like this year. I feel like the best version of this course was in 2024. So that plays into the mental side of things. But yesterday was a really frustrating day for me because this is round 2, by the way. I was playing really well. I was playing very solid. I had a couple bad mistakes, and then I had a couple shots that I felt like got pretty unlucky. But in 6 in my head, I had 2 putts. I had a putt for par on hole 10, which is a hole I've always struggled with. It's just kind of a weird distance tunnel shot. I don't have a great disc for it, and mentally just gets in my head. I had about a 30-footer for par. I chin on the right side. It rolls obviously way down the hill, and then I missed the comebacker. So that's the double bogey because of a missed circle 1 putt. And then we get to the par 5, the 15th, one of the easiest holes on the course, and kind of throw a bad drive, get second shot, but I get up there for about a 28-footer for birdie, and I airball it OB. And I'm like looking back, I'm like, that's 4 strokes I threw away because of missed circle 1s. And can you imagine how much that would have helped me today? So it was definitely a weird weekend. It kind of feels like the narrative of like, Gannon starts the year rough. Like after 2 rounds, it felt like it was still there, even though I was like, it's really just because I missed 2 putts. I would have been on lead card in like 3rd place, but obviously locked in that final round, got the competitive juices going and flowing. And it feels good to be back on tour, man.
Well, I got to call upon our superhero Tosi. You threw some ridiculous shots, Gannon, this final round. And I know you mentioned 15, you mentioned 12, you mentioned 13. We're going to just take a look at some shots here. Tee shot on 15. Talk to us about that shot.
Yeah, so I've been flipping it over a little bit too much every day, and it's typically a head one of those holes. So I'm going full speed DD3. I did this a lot at the match play, kind of experimenting with different game plans, and put that one out about 600 feet right down the middle of the fairway. You can see I have to trust it on hyzer. That way I can keep the disc in the middle. And then once it starts breaking right, I know it's pretty much perfect. And that's just a shot that I use a lot in 2025 to win tournaments. And it's a shot that I would call it a mid-season form only shot. You have to be super confident mid-season and able to execute that shot and have the confidence to be able to do that. And so, that was just a good momentum booster for the tournaments upcoming this season, because it's always really hard to kind of get into that form. And that was really, really good.
Zooming in on another highlight, this knee putt is ridiculous. I can't even believe you even had a window here.
Yeah, this one is about 30 feet, and there actually wasn't much of a window. It's one of those where like you have to take the best option, and I'm like, I'm just gonna rip this putt. I just ripped it. It hit branches. It actually kicked it a little nose up, but it took the speed off, so it kind of kind of equalized there with the speed and the nose angle. But yeah,
Gannon, how did you make that?
I don't
That's
know.
ridiculous.
I mean, if you know where that's at,
Willpower.
there's no putt there. So
There's no putt. Yeah,
Yeah.
not at all. Well, Gannon, you brought up some of the course changes, and I'll start with you and then move over to Chandler on his opinion. Hole number 5 was, I felt, one of the more significant changes to the track. You know, that used to be a par 3 back in the corner. You still had to rip it across the valley, but the tee pad was shorter. It played as the second hardest hole on the course for the weekend. It less than 15% of the field able to take birdie. Can you kind of talk about the difficulty that you were faced with to get one into position to score? It looks like both of you guys somehow, this is a crazy stat. Chandler, you played holes 4 and 5 2 down for the weekend, which is just insane. I think even for the weekend, most people would have taken. Again, I don't know what you played it, but you both at least birdied hole 5 one time. Gannon, what do you make of that new change?
Yeah, it's not my favorite. I think the par 3 is a very good hole. I'm not a fan of holes that require a drive that makes you have to land in literally a super tiny landing zone, and then especially whenever it's paired with an extremely short second shot. I feel like it's just not my favorite type of disc golf. I feel like it's a little fluky in a way. I think it's fluky because disc golf has so many variables, like skips, like random wind gusts, like ninja branches hanging out in the fairway. And that's why it just seems like it's a little too technical. I love the drive. I love the idea of the drive, but because of where the basket's at, it caused a lot of backups because people were going over the top, losing their discs. I had to throw a grenade on my second shot today and was basically just threw up a prayer. I don't think you should ever have to do that on a hole. I don't think the hole is necessarily like a bad hole, but definitely not my cup of tea when it comes to course design.
Well, Chandler, I'll send it over to you because I didn't think that a birdie would be possible forehand until I saw your release point today, and just talk about what you are focusing on with that shot and how you got yourself a birdie round 1, and also just your general opinion on the hole.
On hole 5, right? Or hole 4?
Yep. Hole 5.
Wait, on 5? So yeah, I was about to say, I was looking at that. I was like, that's
birdied
hole 4.
It round 2. That's right, round 2.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So on hole 5, the main thing I'm just trying to do is get it through the 2 trees. I'm kind of looking at that as like a field goal, and I'm trying to just send it straight through as hard as I can. I think you've probably noticed I started to the left of the tee pad, and it's because the angle, and it's something that's so slight, but it's something that I have to do in order for me to, I would say, get it there through that more consistently, is I have to make the angle a little bit sharper. So I'm intentionally starting left and I'm aiming further to the right so that my disc can hold over on anhyzer a little bit more. If I start on the tee pad normally, it's going to hit the tree that's on the left, not the branches that I hit today, but it's going to hit the base of the tree. I actually kind of am going to go against what Gannon said a little bit. I think it's actually a better hole in theory. I think it just needs to be cleaned up, and I think there needs to be. I know it's so new that it's so new that it's a lot of stuff that seems to be out of place, but I think that it's going to get cleaned up. They're going to figure out what to do with it. But and for obvious reasons, I wasn't the biggest fan of the par 3. I mean, like I said, I'm all forehand. It's one of those things that feels very impossible for me. But this one at least is doable if you throw. It requires perfection, but still doable if you can get through the gap with a forehand. And how I birdied it round 2 was kind of fun because I think they said that they might have got it on video, but I ended up getting a good tee shot and I was off to the right and I decided to go flex over the top and I spiked it in and put it to 15 feet and made the putt. That's realistically the only way because the tunnel is a bit tight.
It's insane to even attempt a forehand over the valley. I think Brian was saying it's close to 470 to get to the bowl, but you know it's 430-ish to cross that valley on the forehand line. And you know, just talk about what you're kind of focusing on when you're trying to push the limit of distance, and how are you maintaining control when you're throwing that hard?
So I have the same disc on that hole that I've been practicing. I've only thrown one disc on that hole, regardless of practice or tournament, and it's my overstable blue realm. I do that one actually a lot today, but the only thing I'm really focusing on is the angle that's coming out of my hand and where I'm aiming at. So I'm picking a spot, and it's pretty much at the branches that are hanging out horizontal, and I'm aiming about midway at them to throw it on anhyzer at them because it will drift just right or just enough to the left where it should go center cut and just keep pushing through. Realistically, I know that I can't throw far enough to reach the out of bounds unless I get a ridiculous skip or anything like that. So I'm just trying to get it there. From there, it's more than likely going to be some kind of technical shot, or if I'm far enough back, I will, like I said on round two, I will attempt to go over the top. Which, for the record, I never actually practiced that. I just kind of went for it because I was like, I saw somebody do this yesterday and it kind of worked. So I was like, I think I can do it. And then I think you even saw Rick today try and go over the top. So it's doable, but it's really tight, and I wouldn't recommend it if you have never practiced it. I went for it because I was like, why not? We're here. But yeah, the main thing I focus on is just angle release and picking a point so that my disc can turn. I know how much it's going to turn. I just got to hit the angle right, and the rest will follow.
So my question to you guys, and really Gannon and Chandler, I'd love to hear your opinion, Perks, but I know you weren't out here. That Mando, that's like, what is it, 50 feet off of the cliff's edge? If that got moved back to the cliff's edge, and actually, Perks, that guardian tree at the edge of the cliff is at 373 is what I clocked. But
Okay.
if you get to 373, that Mando prevents you from throwing like an appropriate over the top line. But at least from what I saw, maybe Chandler and Gannon saw something different. Could you move the Mando up, and would it change the scoreability of the hole? Or what do you guys think? Chandler, go ahead.
So I'd like to go ahead and say something because I did play the Monday qualifier, and the Mando sign that they had was in a completely different spot than it was for the actual tournament. The
Boy.
best way, let's see if I can explain this. Because it's probably not the like I might do a horrible job explaining this. So the two trees that are straight up that you can see when you're looking at the hole, there is a cluster of trees that is probably immediately left of the FPO basket, and that's where the Mando sign was for the Monday qualifier. So when we came up to the hole on Friday and we were playing the hole, they were like, "What's the drop zone for?" I was like, "Oh, it's for the Mando." And they're like, "What Mando?" And I was like, "It's right there." And I looked and I was like, it wasn't there. They had moved it back further to the left. So I don't know if that was a last minute decision or if it was previously and just in the wrong spot. But yeah, I think that might be a bit tight if they did put the Mando there. So the Mando tree, as we're flying through right now, there's the tree on the left. That first little area right there on the left of the FPO basket, that tree that you can see right there, that's where the Mando was in the Monday qualifier. It was a bit tight, and if you sawed off any kind of backhand or hit something, you did miss it because somebody on my card in the Monday qualifier unfortunately did that.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm not sure. I think I agree with Chandler. It is kind of a strange hole. I get the idea. The tunnel that they're wanting you to go through is so small, so tight. I saw people make it. I saw people birdie it. It doesn't feel finished. The hole doesn't feel finished. But the shots to watch you guys throw were great. I enjoyed it. But I got to zoom in on this. Chandler, you played the Monday qualifier. You've been on tour.
I did.
You've been on tour for quite some time. You played the Monday qualifier. You got fifth place. You had a shot to win the tournament. What transpired here? How did this happen?
So I had already okay. The last time I played this event was in its inaugural year on tour in 2024. And it was because of how the course felt. And it's funny that you say that the whole five feels unfinished because when I showed up in 2024, I thought the entire course felt unfinished. It felt not cleaned up. The lines didn't feel quite right. And it could have been a mix of between me not playing very well and the course being, like I said, not exactly as clean as it was this year, or at least it felt. But I didn't want to play again. And I swore I didn't want to play again ever. So I took last year off, wasn't going to play this year. And then I kind of got a call from Gateway and they said, "Hey, everybody else from the tour team is down there. So, you should go play." And I was like, "Hey, I really don't like that course, but I will give it a chance since y'all are wanting me to play it." I showed up, like 2 weeks ahead of time. I played a couple practice rounds and I was like, okay, I can par better, which that was not the case 2 years ago. Like on hole 4, example, I think I averaged a 6 for the event on that hole. And this year I figured out I think I can get a 4 at least 2 of the 3 rounds. So I decided to just play the Monday qualifier, or I originally tried to go sign up through the tour card again since I have a full tour card. I missed the deadline by a lot, so I texted Evan Shaper and I was like, "Hey, can I still get in? I see there's a Disc Golf Pro Tour exemption spot." And he replied with, "Hey, that slot's been filled for 2 weeks or so. We just haven't put them in the tournament." And I said, "Okay, so is there a way that I can maybe get in?" He said, "Your best chance is the Monday qualifier." And I played. Yeah, I played the Monday qualifier. I was probably halfway through after taking a triple on hole 8, which was not my fault for once. I can't believe I'm saying that, but it wasn't my fault. And I remember thinking, I was like, I'm not going to get in the tournament, and that's fine. That's completely fine with me. But we got in, and then once I got in, I felt somehow more relieved because the Monday qualifier was insanely stressful. I figured out I actually wanted to get in more than I let on. So, but then yeah, I don't know how we got on lead card final day, but we did that. So that was pretty cool. That
I
was
got
pretty cool.
I got one last question for you before we kind of kick it over to Gannon. You mentioned
Sure.
hole 4.
Yeah, man.
I was down there up the fairway. I'm listening to Nate in the booth, and Nate Sexton goes, "I am so excited to watch Chandler throw hole 4." He's like dreaming about this line. He's like, "The forehand is the best line on hole 4's tee shot, but it's the riskiest. I hope he can pull this off." And you murdered the tee shot. Just walk us through this crazy birdie.
Thank you. So in practice, I was doing putter, I was doing mid, I was kind of just doing a turnover actually with something flippy, and I kind of landed in the same spot. And then I finally was like, okay, what's going to happen? And I figured out I was struggling to kind of get a 4 from there. 5 was attainable, but I was like, okay, I was like, there's got to be a way if I can get just a little more distance that we can get maybe a 4 more consistent on this hole. So I picked up a driver and I was like, what happens if I just throw this thing really hard on Anheuser? And I did, but I picked like an aiming point to where that's like a little bit to the right side there. I was like, if I aim there with Anheuser, it should just hold over. And I threw 3 different drivers and they worked. So that was my play for the tournament. And so I picked up my straighter realm, threw it on Anheuser, and I'm gonna be honest with you, I'm really glad it held over and didn't actually just dump over and cut roll because that's like the only problem with that shot. And when I saw where it was, it's I had to go left side. There was no way I go right
Sick.
side. I want to go away from the out of bounds as much as I can. And when I was intentionally playing up the left side for par in practice, I realized that if I could beat those cedars that are at the top left side right there, if I can kind of push those, and as soon as I see it start to fade, it's going to be parked. It's either going to hit the sawgrass or it's going to hit the big tree, but it'll be parked. So when I lined it up, I was really just hoping I didn't shank it early to the right. And as soon as I actually hit the line, I was like, that's got to be good. But no one that was spectating down there clapped really. So I was like, maybe it's not good. We'll see what happens. And then I get up there and it was like 15 feet or
It's
something.
a weird spectator hole. Weird
Yeah.
spectator hole. You can't really tell what's good, what's not. A good shot
Yeah.
from the corridor on the right could look good until it hits the hill and rolls OB and nobody sees it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I
I'm
thought Ricky's
yeah.
shot was great. What I was on the call for Ricky's forehand up the middle, and I went nuts for it. And apparently it skipped and rolled to 55. And then yours was like pretty good looking. It was farther up the fairway. I didn't know where it landed, so I didn't say anything.
So if you
Yeah.
saw me after I threw my shot, I quickly ran over to the right side because when Ricky threw his shot, I actually saw his go straight through and go all the way down the hill. So I was looking to see if mine did that. And as soon as I didn't see mine, I was like, it's got to be up top putting from somewhere, which is a good sign. But I was convinced mine might do the same thing that Ricky's did.
Yeah, it was a crazy birdie. And I'd love to even talk about that hole as well. I was talking in the broadcast, the landing zone to like throw a backhand down the corridor is getting your 2 meters off the barbed wire. Like that's the good landing zone. Gannon, I'd love to hear from your perspective. I'm assuming you didn't throw the forehand drive or turnover on 4.
I definitely did not. Definitely did not do that. But that's a hole I've always struggled with because, like you said, you to throw that right gap, which I believe is the best way to get the birdie. Um, yeah, you have to throw something that is hyzer flipping and kind of cutting up, pushing straight. And to do that, it makes the line kind of tight. And it's bit me in the butt so many times to where I just threw an overstable disc the last 2 rounds. I doubled it the first round. And I'm like, I'm not even going to mess with it anymore. And I actually got the birdie throwing a forehand up the left side after going overstable on the Chandler likes it.
Sweet.
After going overstable on the tee shot. Just because it's safer. I noticed with Olympus is the birdies are hard to get. And especially at certain points in the course, they're hard to come by. And as long as you're not bogeying, you can shoot a pretty solid round. It's those bogeys that come out of nowhere that get you. So it's definitely a super hard hole. I've thrown a couple crazy drives on that hole where I've seen the basket off the tee, which is insane. But it's not something that's going to be repeatable.
Wow. I walked that fairway so much, and I tried to stand in a spot where I could see the fairway. So how far up are you talking? I saw Chandler's reaction as well.
Yeah, I threw my PD, and it was kind of flippy. It was high in the gap, very left in the gap. And it was also a very direct line. It wasn't really like swinging from right to left. It was pretty much, I mean, the line that I hit was about a foot wide probably for this to work. And it was the perfect height to actually push, and it flipped up all the way down there. And I assume it got some trickle ground play to the right. But yeah, I just had a little chip backhand putter shot in the green.
Yikes.
Well, for me, that's why Olympus is so enjoyable to watch just as a commentator and a fan, is because it does take specific and great shots to even sniff a birdie and to certainly make pars. I think the tee shot on 4 is one of them where I just can't think of another hole on tour that is asking you to go. It's a high floor. It's a low ceiling. It can't really be moving a lot right to left. You can't really be straight off the tee. It has to be kind of a negative launch angle, also keeping the nose pretty flat. But then for the right-hand backhand, it's got to be on hyzer, but moving inside out of the hyzer, right? You can call it a corkscrew hyzer. You can call it an inside out hyzer flip. But that's the one line for the right-hand backhand that you have to hit. And even at the elite level, that's like, it's a 10% line for even the best players. And you got 3 chances to do it. So when it's finally achieved, it's enjoyable to watch, right? And then to see someone like yourself, Chandler, who is going to go against the grain and throw a driver through that same kind of mailbox slot, and then to go up and over left side, it's just incomprehensible and makes for great entertainment. And there's a few holes like that out at Olympus, and that's why I love it. I think for the player, like, that's got to be pretty frustrating, right? Because disc golf, you're kind of we kind of expect this like approach toward perfection, and you want things to be clean. If you throw a pretty good shot, you want to have a look. And if you're not perfect, you have nothing, and you might bogey. That has to be frustrating. But I almost feel that our sport kind of needs to approach that like almost point of perfection off the tee to card birdies. And when that difficulty increases, I think the value of our entertainment might increase as well.
I would have to agree. I think in regards to courses that we play on tour, and I don't play them, Perkins doesn't play them anymore. You two have something to weigh in on. I like a mix. I was talking to Simon about this course as well. And, he's like, my cup of tea these days is a course that we can shoot 14 or 15 under on. Those are the courses that I have fun on. I don't play Maple Hill Golds for fun. I go play the shorts, and I have the time of my life, and I want some of those on the Pro Tour as well. I think variety is cool, and we're talking about an entertainment product as well. I think that also adds to it. But yeah, what do you guys think, Chandler and Gannon, when it comes to like variety of challenge and courses? Do you think all of them should be approaching the levels of Olympus and Northwood Black, or is there room for more fun courses that are a little bit easier to score on?
Yeah, I think I kind of agree where it's like it's good to have variety. People always, you're going to hear the comments online about people being like, oh, this course is too easy. Well, they need to make these courses harder. When Ezra Aderhold shot 14 under at the Monster. But like
That's-
they never look at the people who are also like there's good players shooting close to 10
Getting
over
ripped.
par.
Yeah.
10 over. Like that's Luke Taylor first round, he
He's
shot 9
shot
over.
9 big.
And then he went 9 down, 11 down to get top 25. So shout out to him. But
That
you see
is
what I
a
mean?
big
And
shout
Corey
out.
Dolan had a rough weekend, and he's a multiple-time tour champion. And so people, you need to look at that. And I think disc golf is just going to be a sport where, like, when you do get hot, you're going to get more under par. That's just what's going to happen. I know I personally, I do like to kind of chase that perfection. That's definitely something that I like personally, which is not what Olympus is. And I think that's why I was telling you, Brian, my best round before today, I think was a 600 at Olympus.
Whoa.
I had the one good finish out here, but I think I went like I said, 5 down, 5 down, 5 down. So it wasn't anything crazy. But that's the challenge of Olympus. You throw almost every disc in your bag, and you throw tons of different shot shapes every single hole, which does definitely raise it in the course rating for myself.
What do you think, Chandler?
I don't really know if there's too much to add. I agree with Gannon in the sense of I like variety a lot. I know Olympus is just all around a very tough course and in every aspect. But another thing too is like kind of Gannon mentioned, you don't see the players, the really good players that are having a struggling weekend. You got to remember that you're seeing the
Exactly.
best players for the tournament shooting their best. That's all that you're going to get to see. So it's kind of one of those things where if you see some comments online being like, oh, this course is too easy, whatever the case is, it's like you need to go, you can look at the rest of the tournament. You're going to see a lot of really great players struggling. So it's just one of those things. I don't know. I don't really have too much to add on that. I think Gannon pretty much hit it right on the head.
Well, I will then zoom in on what I really am interested in zooming in on with you, Chandler. And that is this archetype of player, this archetype play style that you've committed to. Obviously, you throw all sidearm. You've learned how to navigate all the tour courses all sidearm. It's gotten you some great success. I'll never forget commentating on you and Macbeth and Eagle in 2022 at the European Open. I'll never forget the forehand roller you threw on hole 10, which was, I'd never seen anything like it on that course. Again, as someone who, when it came to touch and gap hitting and shot shaping, I was all sidearm as well for quite some time. And I would find myself getting trapped in certain spots in the course. I'd be like, I have to throw this line, but it feels really forced. I can do it, but I wish I had the backhand to do it for me. Do you ever find yourself these days in situations where you feel like you really have to force the forehand, or do you feel like you've kind of gotten past that as you've evolved?
Very rarely. So I very rarely feel like I'm ever in a position where I'm forcing it. If anything, the only thing I've decided to do nowadays is if there's a hole that I truly think I'm going to struggle on, and the best example I can give of this is hole 9 at Olympus. I think that I can reach the hole. If it's a pure distance issue, I don't think that's the issue. I told them to get rid of that first tree, the one that's just right there on the right side, because that is exactly where I'm trying to start my flex shot. But I have come to terms with the fact that I can't really birdie that hole, so I'm going to play down and try and ace the imaginary FPO pin is there, chip up and take my par. I can still find a way to play my game despite. Am I giving up a birdie? Yeah, but the hole itself is hard. I mean, for anybody. But I never feel like I'm forcing myself to really like forcing a forehand. And the other
Okay.
thing too is I've played so many rounds and since I've committed to this play style that I have constantly trying to evolve anyway. I've learned to flip stuff up. I've learned to roll, like do rollers. I've learned all different shot shapes and different discs to go with it. So it's one of those things where yes, a backhand could help, maybe, but I have purposely worked on many different times, on countless hours, throwing the same turnover shots to shot shape like a backhand. So it's one of those things where I don't think I'm necessarily hindered. And then realistically, if I am where it's a hole that I don't think I can birdie, I'm just going to play smarter and I'm just going to not hurt my own scorecard, which is something I honestly started doing recently. I started playing a lot smarter.
Well, you haven't been playing for as long as a lot of these other people on tour. 2020, you jumped right into Open. You played a full season of Open. You cashed one time, and then instantly 2021 hits, and you're cashing all the time. And then 2022, you get fifth place at the European Open. What the heck is that? Well, just
I
talk to
really
me
don't
about
know.
those 3 years.
I really don't know. So the story with behind me playing Open is did it by accident because I was talking to my friend Caleb Wilkins. Shout out to Caleb. But he's the one that actually told me because he was on the A&M team at the time and he was also about 1,000 rated player, 1,003 rated player. And he was like, "Hey man, have you ever thought about playing tournaments?" And I was like, "No." He's like, "You should." And I was like, "Okay." So I was asking him and calling him. I was like, he was walking me through the process of on disc golf scene signing up. And I'm over the phone and he was like, "Yeah, so which tournament you want to play?" I was like, "I'm gonna play this one." He was like, "Okay, well the sign up's real easy, just let me know." I was like, "Okay." Went through and then I clicked on MPO and I signed up for it and he was like, "Oh, do you sign up for MA1?" I was like, "That's MPO, right?" And he goes, "No, that's literally the exact opposite. That's not like don't that's like professional. You're playing for money." And I was like, "Oh, okay." I was like, "Should I swap?" And he goes, "How confident do you feel?" And I was like, "I feel okay." He was like, "Oh, just play." But so I've only ever played pro, but yeah, I didn't take cash for a while because I was in college in 2020 and I wanted to play collegiate. So that's the reason why. I think I did maybe cash in a couple other events that year, but I didn't take it because like I said, I wanted to do collegiates. But 2020 and then 2021 is when I really wanted to start taking it seriously. So I went on like a whole Texas tour, playing a bunch of B tiers and A tiers around Texas. And then at the end of 2021 is when I had graduated college and I wanted to go on tour. And pretty much the rest is history. I went committed to a full tour. I lived out of my Mustang in
I
2022.
remember.
I remember
Slept in
that
the
one.
front. I slept in the front seat with a sleeping bag and a pillow between my passenger and my driver's seat. Like a lot. I don't even know how many people know that, but like, yeah, I did that. And then I go signing up for Europe was fun because that was the first European Open since COVID or something like that. So they didn't have. It was a weird process because usually they have an invite list and stuff like that. And at the time they didn't or something. So I looked and I was like, "Hey," I was like, "Should I do this?" I'd never been out of the country. I'd never been out of my own state basically until I started until I started doing this. But yeah, I went to Europe on a whim and played there and it just the rest kind of everything kind of fell into place. Realistically, that's just kind of how it happened.
How did it feel to be on that card? Watching like some of the highest level disc golf get played, and you're just there chucking forehand rollers with a brand that people barely know.
Dude, the
Yeah.
front row seat to the McBattle.
Yeah, that was the two of them throwing some of those shots was some of the highest level of disc golf I've ever seen in person, without question. If I watch Gannon in person a couple more times, that's probably going to change. But no, like watching them throw and them battling it out was just unreal. It was truly like I feel really lucky to have got to see that in person. And the whole experience was just kind of surreal, and it didn't really hit me till later. But I truly tried to enjoy the moment. But no, being on that card was insane. Paul was super nice and super cool, and then Eagle was. I mean, at the time he was hurt, but he was still very cool to talk to and stuff because he wasn't throwing any forehands. So it was kind of funny because somebody came out statistically afterwards and they're like, all tee shots thrown for the final round. Eagle McMahon, 100% backhand. Me, 100% forehand. And they're like, is this like the first time this is ever going to happen? And I don't know, but it was kind of fun to see that. But that was some of the highest level disc golf I've ever seen for sure.
Yeah, you got the front row seat to the lefty backhand on hole 2 in front of the whole crowd. Crazy stuff, man.
That was sick. Yeah, that was. I couldn't believe he did that.
Gannon, I'm passing it off to you. Ricky got you this week. For a little bit, you had Ricky's number. There's all these crazy stats coming out of like Ricky would have made X amount of dollars had Gannon not been in the tournament. And last year he didn't get a single win. He got fourth 4 times. I think he got third 3 times. And he finally got the win after 581 days. And I'll never forget like some of the early times when I was on course watching you two kind of play together. It was like, especially with Paul and Rick, it felt like all of them were like coming at you being like, "Do you see how lucky your shot was, Gannon? That was the luckiest shot I've ever seen." They're kind of like bullying you, like they were the seniors in high school and you were the freshmen in high school.
I mean, Ricky has straight up said to my face during rounds during the last few holes of a tournament that I got lucky.
No
Probably
way.
at least
Still
5
playing.
times. At
Still
least
playing.
no. Yeah, I can go into detail if you guys want.
I would love to
What
hear it.
was that? Was
Go
that?
into detail,
Was it
please.
24? Was that 24 Pro Tour Championship when you guys were
Yeah.
going back and forth and
Yeah,
you got
that-
like there was like a
that-
called penalty? What?
Yeah, I got called for time. He called me for time. And
that was heated.
He was playing. We were so far ahead of everybody else. It was literally just me and him. We shot 12 and 13 under at Nevin, which is one of my best rounds of all time for sure. Yeah, that was probably the best putting we could have ever seen. And I was kind of talking to my caddy Matt. We're like, this isn't possible to keep up this level of play. He had no bogeys through 3 rounds at Nevin, which is just insane. So, yeah, we go way back. There wasn't really an instance there where he said anything about me getting lucky. I remember one time, 3 times. It just they keep like playing in my head, and I keep remembering them. I'll go briefly over 3 times. And this is nothing here I'm saying is like to make Ricky look bad or anything like that. I think it's kind of funny. And part of it is he's just that intense of a competitor, and sometimes you got to try to find a way to, if it's the truth or not, convince yourself on why maybe you didn't win. Maybe that way you can keep your confidence up. It's definitely a thing. I've done it multiple times as well. So let's go 25 D-Glow last year. He's kind of chasing me. I think he's within a stroke. Hole 16, I've been shanking the tee shot. There's that one tree that hangs over the out of bounds. That if you hit it, you almost always go OB. And I threw it and literally went right through, like right to the dead center of the tree. I don't know how I made it. And I get up, I get a birdie, and he's like, dude, that's the luckiest shot I've ever seen in my entire life. Like, dude, right in the middle of the tree, should basically be out of bounds. And I was like, I'm still like 30 feet. It's like, it's basically parked for how bad that shot was. And like, this is a final round. So that was funny. And then 2024 USDGC, where after hole 10, I have him by like 9 strokes. And he's like, yeah, you just got lucky this whole week. Like, you've literally only got lucky. And he's like dead serious. Because I had a couple lucky breaks in that final round, but I also had him by like 9. So like, I'm not sure why he's yapping. And then another time was at Green Mountain Championships. I won by 7 that tournament over him, 2024. That was probably one of the best weeks of disc golf that I've ever played. And he was putting a great battle up, and maybe I got like one lucky break, but he's like, yeah, dude, like you didn't even like play that much better. Like you just got lucky the entire like round.
Oh my God.
And he's like dead serious. But that's just Ricky, man. And you gotta love the guy. He's a fierce competitor, and that's just how it goes,
It's funny.
Well, here's my take about that, Brian. I'm gonna jump in because I think that's like a massive sign of respect from Rick, because I don't feel that Rick is much for gamesmanship. I've never seen him really try and go after someone and really play mind games to try and mess up an opponent. I think that he's probably dishing that out to you, those few instances, only because he knows that like you can take it on the chin and like it's not going to affect your next shot. So it's almost like a sign of respect that Wasaki's like mid round and going to dish that out to you.
Yeah, and I don't know if it like plays differently in his head, but we were talking about, it's the same D-Glow round actually, 2025 last year. I threw a shot on 14. That's the hole that goes up the hill, the par 4. And I kind of pull it right, and as it's fading back in bounds, it hits a kid who was standing in bounds as it was already faded over in bounds. Like it was 100 million% in bounds. And it like came up, I'm not sure how long ago, but it was after that. And he's like, dude, it was flipped over. Like that was never coming back in bounds. And like, I guess like maybe like it just plays differently in his head than like what actually happened. It's on video. Like, you can watch it. I've definitely been guilty of that too, where I'm like, I go back and watch a shot and I'm like, that is not what I remember happening. So, yeah, that's just maybe how the brain works,
I remember you guys having some really wholesome moments on the course, though. I'll never forget. I think it was GMC one round, and the two of you were like laughing and like walking side by side, trash talking each other about luck. And I remember telling Terry that I needed to talk about this because I think in general in disc golf, when you got two guys that just want to beat the snot out of each other, but they're sharing the joy in that while trying to just kick each other's ass. I love that. That's great. That makes my job so much more fun. And I have to say, I know you're telling all these stories, and I know you're saying you're not trying to slander him in any way, but I can feel how much respect you have for him as a competitor and for everything that he's done in the game. And it's pretty wild that he's been able to continuously win year after year. With last year, with him not having a win, I was actually shocked to even think back at that.
Yeah, that was crazy for sure. The fact that he didn't get a win last year is insane to me. Sometimes it just depends on who plays good that weekend. Like, there's plenty of times that people got outplayed, or maybe people didn't play that good. Just that's how sports go in general. So yeah, I mean, this surprises me not at all. I'm not surprised at all that he was able to get this win this weekend. I actually played with him in the first round, and we had to get up together, obviously, and finish out the first couple holes yesterday morning. So we're having a great time. Ricky, especially in like round one, Ricky is just like, we talked the whole round. It's not really that serious. And then obviously it gets intense, the final rounds and stuff like that. But I always enjoy playing with the guy.
Well, as we kind of wind things down, I want to pass it to Chandler. Chandler, you played a tournament you weren't supposed to play. You did pretty dang well, I have to say. Nate Sexton said something along the lines of, and Perkins, you can back me up on this. He said that you were like one of the greatest sidearm throwers he's ever seen. Was that right in what he said, Perks?
Yeah, definitely. I think, he really put the stamp on that Chandler is the best forehand only player that he's ever seen, right? To be able to play an entire event and to be able to score at a course like Olympus, and when you're in those moments, it's easy to go when someone's playing well to go, hey, this guy's the best, right? When Gannon Buhr is playing well, he's winning by 8. It's like, hey, no one can ever beat him, right? He's the best. And when Chandler's throwing those shots, it's like, hey, this guy's the best. But it really is on another level to be able to navigate a course as difficult as Olympus. And I mean, until you kind of slowed up on the back nine, Chandler, I'm not looking at the scores, the PDGA page any longer, but until you slowed up, I mean, you had one bogey through like 2.5 rounds. It was unprecedented. And so I was right there with Sexton. Like, I was throwing my stamp on it. Like, your stock went way up this week for me. And we can't really think of anyone that that has done that. I mean, Jeff Bennett is a name that comes to mind.
And he wasn't even all sidearm.
Yeah, he would chip some backhands in there. I had some good Pro Tour finishes that were 99% forehand, but no question, if the time came, I'd throw a 300-foot backhand hyzer. And for you to be committed to it, and to do what you did this weekend, I think even if you just look at this one tournament alone, it is enough to put you in the top 5. But combine that with, a top 5 major finish as well, it's hard to really argue with what Sexton said.
So what I want to say...
Wow, thank you. I was going to say that's a really lot of high praise. I just want to say thank you for that.
Well, I'm going to ask a similar question. Like, what does it mean for someone like Nate Sexton, who in my mind is like the most consistent sidearm player almost of all time? What does it mean to hear that from him on air?
I was about to say that to hear that from Nate is, I mean, that's truly just an extreme honor. And to hear, like I said, in my opinion, he's one of the top 5 best sidearm players of all time. I mean, I think he's top 3, to be honest with you. But for him to go out of his way and say that, because I mean, he didn't need to say that. I mean, realistically, but if that's really how he's feeling, then it's such a high honor. I mean, really. So there's nothing but just praise. But like, from me, coming back from me, there's nothing but just all I can say is thank you. And I really do appreciate that. I've put in a lot of time on the sidearm. Like I said, I've worked on the angles. I've worked on disc selection. I've worked on a lot of things. And one of the goals I have is to be remembered as one of the best players to throw a sidearm. So I'm trying my best to get good finishes and get on camera so that people can see me more. And maybe I get brought up in conversation sometimes of having, a really great sidearm. That's just one of the things I'm trying to do. And I would like to touch real quick when you said, yeah, I only had one bogey through about 2.5 rounds. The only bogey I had was in round one for, the 2.5 rounds was on hole 7. And it's because I threw a legitimately pure tee shot.
Mm.
I hit nothing. I made a joke to you where I said that Spanish moss today I hit was great on hole 7 because round one I threw something similar, didn't touch a tree, didn't touch moss, and I skipped and went out of bounds to the right. So I threw a truly pure tee shot. But yeah, but going back on what Sexton said and what all the Nates I guess were saying, because like I said, I've heard some people say that they were giving me a lot of praise. I just want to say thank you. I really do appreciate that.
Call it like we see it.
Well,
Thank you, Nate.
boys, we all have our travels coming up. I'm going to be going back to Charlotte. Got to get my booth ready to call the New Orleans tournament. Can't wait. Brand new
Yeah, man.
course, supposed to be 12,000 foot par 69.
All right.
I think you two are both headed out to that tournament. Gannon, Chandler, how are you guys feeling about heading out to New Orleans, play a little disc golf?
Yeah, I'm excited. I mean, I'm always down for a new event. I mean, always. It's so exciting to kind of get away from the norm and you never know when you're going to cement that next event in the Disc Golf Pro Tour. I think it hits harder with me, especially because I help with the Des Moines Challenge, and that was an event that happened to be able to get on the Pro Tour, and now it's one of the staple events in my opinion. So I think anytime you get a chance to do that, same with Charlotte. I think it's a great thing, and I'm excited. I love the idea of a 12,000 foot course. I can't wait.
Kind of piggybacking on what Gannon said, I'm excited. I've also always wanted to play a tournament in Louisiana since it's next door to Texas, but I've heard nothing but good things about the course, especially now that it's they modified some holes to make it harder, and I'm excited to see it.
Nate, what are your closing thoughts after a pretty chaotic week? I know you said this was one of the longest weeks of your working life.
Yep.
What do you have to say?
Well, I'm just elated also to get down to New Orleans. I feel like it's one of the better cities culturally that the United States has. I mean, we're talking about the birthplace of jazz music and the birthplace of funk music. New Orleans has given us the music and flavor as well. This combination of French Cajun food. If you guys have never had it before, crawfish etouffee is one of my favorite dishes that I've ever eaten. So, Gannon and Chandler, while you're down there, if you've never been to that city, get some recommendations for some locals on some spots because it's got some of the most unique offerings as far as food and music. And yeah, can't wait to be on course again. Brian, we're kind of flopping roles, so I think that's pretty soon. And I wanted to ask you guys both. I'll start with Gannon. Like, what's with a new property? I don't think there's any coverage to look back on of this course. Like, how does the preparation differ if you've never seen the layout before, Gannon?
I think something that's really important is talk to players and hear what they have to say about certain holes. The amount of times that I've asked players and they point out a line or something like that, and I take it during the tournament. It happens all the time, and whether or not it's the right option or the best option, it's good to at least have it in your brain. That way, the course knowledge, it's there if you kick there, or if the wind's acting a certain way, or you're feeling confident, like you're always going to have that option. So I think for me that's important. And also, just getting quality practice rounds in and making sure you don't have too many obligations that week.
Mine's pretty easy. I typically take one practice round to just see the course. I don't have a plan on what I'm going to throw on anything, but I just want to see the course, see the holes, how they shot shape, and then come up with an idea on what I think I'm going to throw on it. The next practice round is going to be a solo practice round where I go out and I take what I think I can do, and I'm going to go out there and I'll try it. And then I'll play a practice round with some good friends who give me perspectives, like Gannon said, into an idea about maybe trying something different on a hole. So it happens all the time, like Gannon said. So that's typically what I try and do. But I try to do a solo round just to see the course, a solo round to implement it, and then play with friends to see if there's any new insights.
Thank you, boys, so much for your time. I know it's been a crazy week. Good luck in your travels. Be safe. A couple things to close. Big shout outs to Jake Hebenheimer, top 10 finish, 8th place. 18-year-old Dallas Garber, 15th place in his first official tournament on tour. I met
And
his
that's
whole
one
family.
stroke out
Yep.
out of top 10 as
They
well. I
seem
think there was like a
Yeah.
6-way tie for 9th.
They seem like wonderful people. And yeah, I think it's going to be a fantastic year for the tour. Again, thank you guys so much. Owen Scoggins got the first win of the year. In the FPO division, Taylor Chosek tied for 2nd place. Lots of shakeup in both divisions. Man, for Brian Earhart, Nate Perkins, Chandler Kramer, Gannon Buhr, we are signing off. The tour is underway. We'll see you out there, folks.